الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. We're talking about Islamic lifestyle, and we said that a lifestyle is something that the way we talk, the way we eat, the way we dress, what we eat, all of this goes back to our interest and it goes back to our beliefs. And a person that has tawheed, which is an embodiment of an Islamic lifestyle, a person that is a monotheist, should this be displayed in their life? Someone that is a true monotheist, their belief in God, should you be able to recognize a monotheist just by the way they live their lives? The answer to this is yes, of course. Someone that loves God, someone that worships God, but of course understands God, how He is, understands a Lord that is in charge, engaged, and that this world there is nothing but tawheed al-af'al, that all actions go back to God. And that person, when you see him, talk to them, or yourself, when you talk to yourself, analyze yourself, you should notice tawheed in everything that you do. When you talk to somebody, usually a person's lifestyle is in such that whatever they're interested in, they talk about. But if you want to see how close you are to God, see how much do you talk about religion? How excited are you about religion? How much do you serve God? And then you'll see what degree that Islam is part of your lifestyle, what degree God is in your lifestyle. How much do you remember Him? It's not only the fact that I say I believe in a God and that's fine. You have to believe in God with all His attributes and the stages of Tawheed. If we have time, we'll mention them. But also that connection to God is fresh in our lives. It's throughout the entire day I'm remembering God. Not that I only remember God when I do salat, if I even do that. That the entire time I'm remembering God. I'm not in the stage of ghafla, neglect. My heart is a heart that remembers, that calls for God. And wherever I am, I see Him, I remember Him through all the signs, because anything you see in this world is a sign of God. Everything that we're looking at is a sign and display of God's beauty. We cannot separate that. You're seeing the display of nature, and all you see is the Khaliq, you see the Creator, the Designer. It's very unfortunate that in this day and age, as Muslims, when you look at the average Muslim, even the ones that come to the center, most of the talk is usually not about God. Most of the interest is usually, if you talk about something else that happened that is fun or something that's more engaging. But sometimes you just talk about God, they're saying, what are you talking about? They get bored. So how can we change ourselves in order to have a true monotheistic lifestyle? Inshallah. The first part, we start about 4 things that we need to rid ourselves of. 4 barriers before of humanism, secularism, liberalism, and relativism. We talked about that. God should be the center of our lives, not human desire. God should be the center of our lives. And that whatever we want to achieve as a community, as a society, the spiritual benefits outweigh the material benefits. Even if we lose money, even if there are economic problems, financial difficulties, but we achieve spiritual benefit, it is still worth it for us. Because the spiritual has preference to the material. Is this correct? Would everyone agree with me? When you look at some of the traditions, the Imams wake us up and mention that hadith, تَأْخُذُ عَنْ صَادِقٍ خَيْرٌ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا فِيهَا. one hadith that is taken from the Sadiq, a trustworthy person, one narration is better than the entire world and what is in this entire world. But is that how we view the religion of God? Is that how much time do we put to research and learn these books, read the Quran, read the narrations, read the books of the ulama? How interested are we? I remember once we went to visit one of the great maraji in Qom, and I had a family member that was really, I believe, a muwahid. He wasn't a scholar, but he lived and loved the scholars, and he loved him, and they had a relationship with big ulama. Most of the major ulama that he had a personal relationship with them. And he wasn't a scholar himself, but he would worship God. And in front of this, family member we had, may God bless his soul, you were afraid to ever talk about the dunya. You would get ashamed. You would just only talk about God. When you come to his house, immediately he'd read a hadith, even though he's not an alim. So we went and visited one of the Maraja Taqlid, and he gave a nice speech. It was actually some of the Muballiqeen that were going to Zahidan, that were going to the southeast of Iran. They were going from Qom, and he was advising them. And he liked that speech so much, he said that, how much are you willing to trade for this speech? Because it's the remembrance of God. He says, I'm willing to give, and he really meant this, I'm willing to give all my money I have just for this speech. Everything I have, all my wealth for this speech. So that is the importance that a muwahid gives on knowledge, to educate ourselves in Islam. When one narration from the Imams is better than the entire world, how come we don't value Islamic knowledge so much? How come we don't spend our time? If you look at your day today, I want you right now to go and investigate. What did I do today, for example? How much did I learn today? How much of it was for God? How much time did I have today, for example? And you realize that I didn't spend my time worshiping Him. I didn't spend my time remembering Him. And I have been in the stage of ghafla. And if you keep adding all this ghafla together, ghafla, you see that in reality I'm neglecting God. Then how can I have a monotheistic lifestyle? A monotheistic lifestyle is one that tawheed and the belief of God is fresh. We can't even, unfortunately, I'm talking to myself, we can't even remember God in our own salat. We can't even remember Him in our salat, let alone at our work, at our home. Read and study and use our time wisely. So therefore, if we want to have a true monotheistic lifestyle, it is one that we understand God, how He truly is, and two, that belief is fresh in us and it reflects upon us. It reflects on my schedule. And if I were to write down today everything that I did, everything that I said, there would be tawheed in it, monotheism in it. So when you look at tawheed, you see that the narrations have awwaluddin ma'rifatu. The first part of religion is knowing God. That is the first step. وَكَمَالُ مَعْرِفَتِهِ التَّصْدِيقُ بِهِ. And the completion of understanding God is attesting to Him, testifying Him. وَكَمَالُ التَّصْدِيقِ بِهِ تَوْحِيدُ. And the completion of testifying to Him, we have a narration, is His oneness. وَكَمَالُ تَوْحِيدُهُ الْإِخْلَاصُ لَهُ. But the completion of Tawheed is His ikhlas, you could say, regarding Him as pure. وَكَمَالُ الْإِخْلَاصُ لَهُ نَفْيُ صِفَاتُ عَنْ. So all of this awwaluddin goes back to nafyu sifatu an. The completion of Tawheed is to detach, and this is from Nahjul Balagha, to detach any attribute that God has that is like humans. Any type of humanistic trait to God. any type of limitation to God. We unfortunately have, sometimes when you look at the narrations from other schools of thought, you see that actually there has been an incorporation of the attributes of human in their narrations. When you look at, alhamdulillah, the narrations of Ahlul Bayt, you see that nephew sifatu an, that Imams of Ahlul Bayt have stood for this and have always taught us a tawheed, that God is separated from any type of human attribute. What is one type of human attribute? It would be a human can be seen. Human can be seen, but of course God cannot be seen. Can God be seen in the hereafter? He cannot be seen in the hereafter. God does not have any human attributes, because for you to be seen, you must occupy some time and space. Those are, again, human attributes. So you see, the first part of religion is to believe and change that view that you have on God. And this has always been the mistake of man, and you see with other religions, that man has always tried to bring God down and change him to make him more tangible, something that I can understand better. Because it's hard for us to understand wajib al-wujud, necessary existence. It's hard for us to imagine that. So therefore, we're always trying to bring that Lord down. So this goes back to the fact that we believe in the unity of His essence, and anything else would be shirk and polytheism. We believe in unity of His attributes. We believe in unity of His actions, that His lordship is remaining everywhere, that everything that happens in this world, it is because of God, and He allows us to have free will. But everything, He is not disengaged from this world. And this will cause you at the end to have lordship and rububiyyat and commanding. That if He is our Lord, and He is the owner of everything in this world, and everything goes back to Him, therefore He is the only one that deserves to command me. He is the only one that I should serve. I should never serve any other human being. I do not have to listen to any other human being unless it is His will, unless it is His prophet, unless it is the successor of the prophet. Nobody else is wajib for me to listen to, unless He desires it. And the final stage of this is, once you understand, my dear brother, my dear sister, that everything is commanded by God, our entire lives is fulfilling the obligations that we have in our duties towards God. And we believe in His engagement in this world. And then I only worship Him because He is the one that is making my future. He is the one that is controlling me. He is the one that is providing for me. He is giving my rizq. He is protecting me. So therefore, I should not worship anything else. And this is one of the last stages, is the stage of tawheed and oneness of God in worship. Because every action in this world goes back to Him. So you should not bow down to anyone else. You should worship Him. He deserves to be worshipped. And the final step of tawheed of this part is this understanding, is that I begin to the reality of God in this universe. I began to see, and they call this a tawheed ash-shuhudi. I begin to witness God when I live my life. Whatever I see it as a sign of God. Whatever I see, for example, I see the rug here, as if I can hear almost, for example, this rug saying that I am in need of God. I am in need of God because I'm contingent existence. I have contingency. Everything I look around in this world, I see temporary existence. And all is in need in every millisecond, even more than this, of God. All I see around me is faqr, is need. And if it is not for God, which is wajibul wujud, necessary existence, none of this would be sustained. None of this would happen. So I see God through His creation. All I see is need, and all I see in reality is God fulfilling the need. That is one of the interpretations we can say in when you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, that God has samadiyah, that God is the eternal refuge. Samad is one of those difficult words, meaningful words, that many narrations we have describing what the samadiyah of God is, and that everything goes back to Him. Every need He is removing and fulfilling all the needs of creation. So therefore He is the eternal refuge. Everything goes back to God and seeks refuge by God. Imam Ali alayhi salam was once asked in narration, فقال سئل أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام فقيل يا أخا رسول الله هل رأيت ربك. How beautiful the narrator addresses Imam Ali alayhi salam by mentioning him, O brother of Rasulullah, how do you see your Lord? This is the tawheed of Imam Ali alayhi salam. فقال وكيف أعبد من لم أراه. How can I worship He who I cannot see? How do you see your Lord? He says, I see my Lord. I see Him. But then he mentions in the tradition, لم تره العيون بمشاهدة العيان. Eyes do not see Him. When I say I see God, it is not the eyes that see. You see verses, we just read verses in the Quran. The brother very beautifully recited that it is the job of the heart to see God. It is not the heart that the Quran mentions, a body part that is just blood is pumping. It is a heart that can hear, a heart that can see. As long as that qalb is pure, it's a qalb that is receptive, can feel God's presence. ولكن رأته القلوب بحقائق الإيمان. Imam Ali mentions. Therefore, hearts see Him with the reality of Iman, meaning that this stage of Tawheed and incorporating Tawheed and making it part of our lifestyle is not only an ugly issue, is a part that your Iman becomes so strong that this heart is filled with so much Iman that all you can see is God. You cannot see anything else isn't just God and those beings and creations that are in need of God. That's it. That's all I see. متى غبت, Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, حتى تحتاج إلى دليل يدل عليك. When were you hidden that you need a proof to point towards you? Unfortunately, people ask us questions and we actually, in reality, these should be silly questions. Okay, how do you know God exists? These are questions that are against our fitrah. Yes, we have philosophical, theological proofs for this, yes. But Imam Hussein says, Mata ghibta, where were you hidden? Hatta tahtaj ila dalil. And why do you even need a proof? When were you hidden? Do you need proof that you exist? Do I need a proof right now that I exist? No. What is the dalil? What does Mullah Sadra say about proving that I exist? I already know I exist. I know I'm one. So this is the heart, part of the fitrah, the inner being of us, the heart, to witness God. So therefore, a person, and we see in the narrations very beautifully that Allah mentions to His prophets that basically you have to decide between two, hubb al-shahawat or God. That the heart cannot have the longing of lust and God in it at the same time. The problem is, my dear brother, my dear sister, and I'm talking about to myself, that we have filled this and polluted this heart so much with hubb al-shahawat, with love of the lower desires. Therefore, we have caused it to see blurry. It can't see anymore. See, sometimes eyes are damaged and needs glasses to see. The heart becomes damaged and polluted and it cannot see anymore. And as we progress in society and we get further away from the truth, then there needs to be more proofs and more proofs for God's existence, more convincing. So a true person with fitra, and when I'm not trying to blame anyone that asks why does God exist, but it's according to the dua of Imam Hussein, God was never hidden for us to even ask why does he exist. But the reason why we need to have theological proofs for God's existence is the fact that sometimes our heart is so polluted and so heavy, you need to have stronger and stronger and stronger proofs to get to the other side. One of our theologians says this: these proofs we have in theology are like a bridge that gets us to the other side. Some types of bridge are light. So if you bring someone heavy like myself, it will break the bridge and I'll fall down. Some bridges are built heavy, made out of concrete, reinforced. Has rebar, for example, in it, and concrete. So therefore, a heavy person can pass. The heavier, he says, this theologian, heavier this person is, the stronger the bridge needs to be, right? The lighter that person is, the lighter bridge it will be sufficient. See, theology is the same way, it's like a bridge. All you're doing is getting you to the other side, which is truth and haqq and reality. So if a person is burdened with sin, if a person's heart does not work anymore and cannot understand what's in the mind and logic and cannot accept that, and that heart is not an open heart, then they will need a very, very strong proof for God's existence. They will need very strong proofs for religion. And if it is too much polluted, then there is a stage where however much you will convince that person, they will never believe. As the Quran mentions that they have aqlal, for example, they have chains on their necks, and that in front of them there's a sad, there's a barrier, and behind them there is a barrier, and they're covered. Such a person becomes, their hearts in darkness become so hard that even if all the prophets come to them and give them the most amount of miracles and proofs, they will never believe. So theology for us is a bridge that if that person is light, they will need a weak, even if the proof is weak, it will suffice because it's enough to get them. But once that person gets and is living in a civilization, a culture that is keep on polluting his heart, then it becomes necessary to talk with stronger theological proofs in order to save them, inshallah. As long as it's not too late. And we said one person, then will be, as Quran mentioned, that we have completely covered them. So this is the first step is that Tawheed in our lives, it is a process in us. It is a process in theology, of knowledge. It is also a journey that we stay away from sin, that we obey God, and at the same time while we're doing this, our heart is opening up, it's becoming more receptive. Many people have problems with understanding God in implementing Tawheed. Once there is a story I'm going to mention of one of our great scholars by the name of Marhum Akhund Khurasani. He's also known as Sahib Kifaya, Muhammad Kadhim Khurasani. He lived in the time period of 1839 and 1911. He was regarded as one of the most important mujtahids at the time. We're still in the Hawza today, we still study his book. In the 9th and 10th year of the Hawza, actually he was an Afghanistani student that moved to Najaf, and he became one of the brightest and most intelligent scholars that we have, Sahib Kifaya. And we study his book still today, in the 9th and 10th year. They actually tried to remove his book and change his book and write it, and they had a dream of him, and they mentioned that, and told the author in dream, they said that even you don't understand my book yet. So even you're trying to change it, they said you don't even understand what I'm trying to say. So Sahib Kifaya was a jurist, a faqih, a marja. And a person comes to him with a businessman. A businessman comes, and a Sayyid Alim comes with him to meet him. The businessman wanted to give his khums, wanted to give money to Sahib Kifaya. And the Sheikh Sayyid that was with him he knew the business end, but he was in need. And as you know, the support of the Hawza of the Islamic Seminary, one of the ways that it is supported, because it's not connected to a government, it's not connected, it's independent financially, it is supported by khums. Just how khums, the 1/5 tax that we pay, goes for hospitals, goes for masjids, goes for schools, goes some of the other Sahm Sa'adat, goes for poor Sayyids or other people that are in poverty. The Hawza, the seminary, is funded, especially the younger Tullab, is funded by khums. So when, say, for example, that businessman leaves, the Sayyid asks Sahib Kifaya, now that there's some money in Najaf, it was a very poor time at that time. Maybe they would only give them sometimes one loaf of bread just to eat. That was it, maybe, and there's a time period. So the Sayyid says something privately to Sahib Kifaya, and Sahib Kifaya gets upset, and then gives him that entire large amount of money, gives entire money to that Sayyid, to one person, doesn't share it with anyone else, and gives it to him, and he goes. The students are watching, and usually students that are in Najaf, their only source of income is whatever their teacher would be able to give them. If the teacher doesn't give them anything, they might starve. So they get upset. And they get upset at their teacher and wondering, why did you give all of this money, all of it to one person? They were at first, kind of embarrassed to say this to the teacher. And they said, forget us. What about yourself, teacher? You are living in poverty. You're living a harsh life. At least take some of it for yourself. You gave it all away. And then Sahib Kifaya began to cry. And they're wondering, why is he crying? And he says this, basically, I have taught you so many years, but you haven't learned the first lesson in religion, which is awwaluddin ma'rifatuh. The first stage in religion is the first part of religion is understanding God. Do you believe that God is your raziq or not? Is God your sustainer or not? Your theological students, do you believe that He's going to support you or not? And he began to cry, seriously cry, that his students didn't understand God because he understood him. Therefore, he gave all of that to that Sayyid. And they asked, what happened? He says, well, he has 2 sons. And his 2 sons are getting married. They're going to start a new life. They have expenses. They're Sayyid. And I said to him, the father, how much do you need? He gave me a very low amount. And I knew that with that low amount, he could not support his 2 sons. So I gave him, the large amount of money. So we have, sometimes when you view Tawheed, we think we truly live with Tawheed, but we're not. If you come and get tested, you see that actually I'm lacking that Tawheed that I really need. I'm lacking that tawakkul and reliance on God. Because if you believe in a capable God, if you believe in a powerful Lord, if you believe in a merciful Lord, if you believe in a wise Lord, then why would you ever be in a need of stress or anxiety that God is not going to provide for me? And he mentioned that, look, I came from a humble beginning. And God gave me so much already. God gave me ijtihad. God gave me all these things that I have. And he's very grateful for it. So when we believe in these 3 attributes of God, that he is capable, is he capable to solve my problem or not? Of course he is. Does he care about my problem? Of course he cares, more than your parents, more than you care for yourself. Is he wise? Does he have knowledge? Of course, he is knowledge itself. So then why is not God sufficient for us? Why is he not sufficient? Do we need another God? Do we need a wiser God, a stronger God, a more powerful God? Or is the problem with us? Just how when Imam Hussein a.s. mentions that when were you hidden that you need a proof, maybe the problem is with us and our beliefs and that we're not living that monotheistic lifestyle, that tawheedi lifestyle, that if we truly lived it, there would be no khawf, There would be no huzn, there would be no fear, there would be no grief. That you would be with God, and you would be of the happiest of people, and you would truly, your life would be in a way that would be much more joyful than it would be today. Look at those that truly reached God and spoke to Him and did munajat with Him. They have the story of Prophet Ibrahim, for example. The Prophet Ibrahim hears the dhikr of God. And for him, that remembrance is so precious. Just hearing it is so beautiful. It was, I believe, an angel that was remembering God, and he hears it, and it was the most beautiful thing he ever heard in his life. He says, what is that sound? I will give my half of my wealth, of my stock or flock for this, to hear this tasbih of God again. And he hears it and says, I will give the other half just to hear it one more time. That remembrance of God. So we're going to talk about how can we, at the end, remember God and live with God better? How can we be less forgetful of God? And I'm telling this for myself, of course, more than anybody else. The first step is this. We don't have much time, but I'll try to summarize it. The environment that we live in, change your environment, especially your home, or if it's your work, or whatever it is. Change that environment that is reflective of God. Change that environment. If you're going to have TV on all the time, and that TV is going to play whatever it wants to play, you're going to forget God. A lot of times, some people do much better in silence. Much people do better when they have books. They have a place for themselves to worship. When they want to concentrate for their salat, it's good to have a specific room for the salat. That you can focus, and you have your books of dua there, you have your Quran there, you have your books that you can read and study. So the first is making and creating an environment for myself and my family in a way that it is more mindful of God. Even artwork that we have in our houses, calligraphy, verses of Quran that remind us of God. And it's all about how you can decorate. That is up to you, and make an environment that reminds you of God. A peaceful, calm environment that reminds you of God. 2, practice concentration and practice remembering God in salat. If I cannot remember salat, God in my salat, how can I remember Him throughout the day? Make my day centered around salat. When I go to work, for example, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to work, and all this is going to be done so I can do salat. My entire day was for this ruku' and sujood. Is there anything else in life for the human but ruku' and sujood? There's nothing else that is more important than ruku' and sujood. We do everything else as a preliminary to reach salat, right? Everything else that human needs to eat, to rest, to drink, to help people, everything else, income, it is done also at the end we can properly do salat, which is hayya ala khayr al-amal, the best action. Make my life around salat and prepare myself for a salat that I'm going to practice remembering God, practice talking to Him. So then when you have that beautiful salat done, then you will remember Him afterwards. Third, it is preparing the heart, watching over the heart. And we talked about this, that heart that is full of shahwat, that heart that is full of the material, that heart will not be reflective. That heart that is full of God's sins, that heart that is full of disobedience, that is not going to remember God anymore. 4, attend the masjid and majalis weekly as much as I can. Attend centers. Do you think you can grow spiritually without the masjid? Alhamdulillah, one of the benefits of this masjid is that it truly is a masjid. I think everyone knows this for a fact, that this is really a masjid, and they recited the formula for masjid to be here. Most centers in the US are not masjid, they're centers. This truly is a house of God. What does it mean to be a house of God? God's house. This is called al-idafa al-tashrifiyya, meaning that it has such high significance that the masjid is my house. We need to go to the masjid. We need to go not because of my sermons, inshallah. There's, you go to better speakers than me, people that practice better than me. But go and listen to maw'idah, go and listen to advice, so that the entire week you can be charged. Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions, kill your heart and live in your heart. Very beautiful. How can I kill? Is that a contradiction, killing and giving life to my heart? No, because it's in a different way. Amithu bizahada. Kill your heart with zuhd, with asceticism, with disattaching yourself. Even if you have nice things, you're not attached to it. It's yours. It's, for example, it belongs to God. It's not an attachment for me. But at the same time that I'm killing my heart, I'm enlivening my heart. وَأَحْيِ قَلْبِكَ بِالْمَوْعِظَةِ. Give life to your heart again with maw'idah, with admonition, with advice, with narrations. We need this. We used to go in the Hawza, and when I first went, I went to the seminary of Ayatollah Sheikh Ahmad al-Mushtaidi. And we had lessons daytime. Then again, we had lessons from him at nighttime. At nighttime, he would write a hadith for us, or someone else would write one hadith, and we would all write it down. And actually, he would have different people translate. I was usually the English translator. He just liked it because, it was English, and then he would have somebody doing, even it was the interesting thing, someone have it in Azari, for example, different languages. But the important thing he would say is you need to come every night to get your advice, to get the hadith every night, a new hadith. And then you remember that and you practice that. But human nature is, in a way, if it's not reminded, you're going to think about something else for the entire week. They say when you watch a film, a movie, even you're going to be thinking about that for the next 48 hours. You don't even know about it. That's going to be in your mind. But when you come to the center, and how many benefits there are besides the hadith you learn, verses of Quran beautifully mentioned, seeing the mu'mineen, the light of the mu'mineen, being in a holy place, this will cultivate your heart. This will give life to your heart again. This will be maw'idah. The Quran itself is maw'idah. Learning about verses from the Quran, learning about hadith is maw'idah. So this is the best way for us, inshallah, to a few pieces of advice. So one is that environment in your house. Make your house like a star. There's a narration that how you see the stars from earth out, the angels also view earth oppositely. They see earth and they see stars. Someone will be like, for example, a big star, some house. And they say in the hadith, those are homes that God is being worshipped. Each one of those stars is a home that in it is recitation of Quran, in it is hadith, in it is studying Islam, in it is worship. So make your house like that star that the malaika, the angels see. They see, oh, this is a beautiful house. 2, practicing concentration and reflection of God. Another thing we're going to add to this is saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim helps a lot. Before any action, when you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, I'm telling this to myself too, it makes that intention of that thing for God as well. It makes it for God too. I'm going to do this, Bismillah ar-Rahman, for God. I'm going to, for example, go to work, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm going to spend time with the family, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Or sometimes people say, I'm going to spend time with family, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Now don't be like that, say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. 3, the heart. Protect the heart. It reflects everything that we see and do. And inshallah, the fourth, come to the center and live in your heart and give life to it with maw'idah, inshallah, with admonition. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, we can practice upon what we discuss. Any questions? If it's